This is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is September 26th.
Yeah.
7th.
Yeah, 26.
2017.
Yeah.
And I'm interviewing Denise Jones as part of a collaboration between the Chilocco Alumni Association and the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Denise, you're Ponca and Absentee Shawnee, a fourth-generation Chilocco graduate, and your time at Chilocco ended the year the school closed in 1980. You worked at OSU in Stillwater for a number of years before moving back to the Tulsa area, and you've done a lot of interesting things since then, including raising 7 children and being self-employed. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Hi.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I didn't graduate from Chilocco. I was actually a junior when it closed.
Okay.
So
Yes, thank you for that correction.
And I was born in Pawnee, Oklahoma, and then my dad was a master printer, and immediately moved us to Dallas, Texas, where he worked for a big printing company called Clark & Quartz. So I was there until I was 12.
Oh,
and
Dallas.
then he moved us back here. My grandmother had a restaurant called Wimpys in Ponca City, and we moved to Newkirk, and they opened a second one there in a teen town, and they also had a Pizza Hut, or it wasn't Pizza Hut, but it was called The Hut, which was pizza.
Oh, that's neat. What was your relationship with your grandparents on either side?
Well, very good. I used to spend summers with both, sometimes with my grandparents on my mother's side, and then sometimes I'd come for the summer growing up and work with my grandma in the restaurant. So.
And were you around both the Shawnee culture and Ponca culture, or was one more
Mostly
predominant?
Ponca,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. My grandmother, they all lived around the Ponca City area, so yeah, it was mostly Ponca.
Well, tell us a little bit about Wimpys. That was a pretty well-known restaurant.
Yeah, it was homemade food, and it was really good. So, and some of the family felt like my grandma was getting up in age, and they went ahead and sold out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was kind of unusual for a native-owned enterprise to start. You remember any stories about
most of my family has been entrepreneurs. My dad as well, and my grandmother. He got it honestly. My dad's grandmother was full Ponca, and she was the first Notary Republic female as in Oklahoma, and she was full Ponca.
That's
So,
neat.
yeah. That came a lot probably from Chilocco Indian School.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were in Dallas for quite a chunk of time. What was it like growing up in Dallas at that time?
it was great. Yeah, it was really good. We initially lived downtown. I've since gone back and looked, and it's a parking lot. But and then Dad moved us into the suburbs, so it was great. It was good.
And then when you would come back to Ponca City in the summer, big change?
And no, it was just family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, cousins, lots of cousins.
Right. What was Ponca City like at that time when you were coming back in the summers?
I mean, it seemed considerably smaller, but it was good. We just mostly stayed, at my grandma's house. Sat out on the porch and talked.
You went to public school, I guess, then in Dallas. What grades? Some of the
First through sixth.
First through sixth. And then you were back in Ponca City going to school, public school?
Newkirk,
In
which
Newkirk.
is 12 miles north
Right.
of Ponca City, yeah.
Right. What was school like in Newkirk?
It was hard. It was really hard. One, there was a huge cultural shock from, Dallas, Texas to 2,500 people.
Mm-hmm.
And probably didn't adjust that well. I did okay first couple of years. But,
Did you find it was kind of like going over the same old material, or just, was it attitudes, or what was the difference?
I did come, advanced from Dallas to Newkirk, and yeah, I think I did get bored.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't anything to do.
Right.
Except
right.
a little mischief. I found that pretty good.
Did you? So, what was the first time, you have this whole family history of attendance at Chilocco, but what was the first time that you actually went to the campus? Was it before you went to school there?
Oh, yeah. My dad used to do some things up in there, and he learned to be a master printer from being at Chilocco. And so he immediately went to work for a printing company, a newspaper right after that. And
so like the first time that you went maybe was with your father to the campus, or was it before that?
No, with my father.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we used to go with family. He had friends and family. I had an aunt that worked there at Chilocco. We visit her.
Okay, what job did she have?
Tilly Hernandez, I believe she worked for Mr. Baker.
Okay. And did he like to go to the printing
Yeah.
classroom?
Yeah.
Cool. So tell us a bit about your family history at Chilocco.
Well, I was the girl that got pregnant in high school, and I wasn't doing too well in school, and so Dad put me in Chilocco, and that helped a lot.
But go all the way, as you mentioned, going back to your great-grandmother, you had family there. Can you walk us through who went and kind of what they felt like Chilocco had given them?
Well, I was fourth generation. My great-grandmother went there. She was taken from her home when she was 4, and she went to school all that time, and then she also was a matron, stayed and was a matron afterwards. My grandmother, which was her daughter, Velma Pinsino, was the second generation to go, and then my dad and my aunt was the third generation to go, and then I was fourth. So
I'm kind of thinking, when your great-grandmother was working as the matron there, then your grandmother sort of grew up on that campus too.
I think it might have been before they
might have been before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so neat. And so what were some of the maybe stories, either good or bad, that they shared with you about their experiences before you went?
I mostly just heard good.
Mm-hmm.
They had the school dances, and they, had all of the, the girls learned how to type and sew and do all the homemaking things. They had, proms and dances and, everything pretty much, that my dad told me was really positive. So,
were there any Chilocco marriages that came out for your?
Yeah, I'm sure there are. My dad didn't marry out of there. He probably should have. That one picture I showed you of him.
Yes.
So, but I mean, he's always liked her, but no, not directly.
Okay. So when you
except for me.
Right.
I didn't marry a man that I went to school with there.
Okay.
So I guess I did.
So when you came to Chilocco and you're, like you said, you know, you have a little child.
I had a 2-year-old, yes. And so...
so you're coming in with a lot more to deal with than some of the students.
Yeah.
So what
Still excelled. Was
Yes.
head cheerleader and did really well.
Talk to us a little bit about the cheerleading team. What
They were awesome. We just had fun. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun. It was...
was it competitive to get in?
Yeah.
Pretty competitive?
Yeah.
Because you have to be real athletic.
Yeah, and I'm still friends to this day, you know, with my cheerleading coach. She was also the art teacher. So.
Oh, neat. It's really neat. What was her name?
Sandy Wilson. So,
Oh, Sandy.
Yes.
Wilson. Yes. Also an artist.
Yes.
Did you all compete against other cheer
No, we
teams?
just cheered.
You just
No,
cheered
we just
for the
our
games.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the games? Do you remember one that was particularly special, or do you remember any?
I know our basketball girls were really tough. You know, they were awesome. I mean, that's 30-some years ago, but you know, I just remember a lot of camaraderie and
Right.
you know, just loving everybody on.
And it was fun to cheer for them.
And we had, you know, Sandy just made it really, you know, lighthearted and fun. So
Cool. What was the most kind of amusing thing that happened, either during the cheer practice or when you were cheering at a game?
Well, I mean, you know, just learning all the cheers and things. I just think we felt like we were hot stuff, you know.
I'm sure you were.
It's funny to think of now, but yeah.
What kinds of classes did you take when you were there?
Mostly business.
Mostly business. Did
Typing was particularly interesting, but
what was that?
well, use the old time, you know, typewriter stuff, and we were all pretty ornery. So yeah, we looked like we were typing a lot of the times.
Who were some teachers that stood out for you?
You know, I can't remember her name for the world, but I remember her face just is right there. I can't remember.
Is this the
her
typing
name.
teacher?
Yeah.
Do you think she was on to you or not?
I think she pretty much hated us, but
did you still have work details then or not?
I didn't because I commuted.
Right.
And so I had a baby.
Right.
And so I commuted back and forth. So, but yeah, I'm sure the girls did.
Did you ever bring your toddler to school?
No, but I did bring the girls home with me on the weekends. They'd get weekend passes, and I'd take a different one home with me, you know, every week. So it was fun.
I bet they really appreciated that too.
We had a lot of fun.
Did they go to Wimpys and, you know, just kind of hang out?
Yeah, and I think, you know, they got to meet my friends in Newkirk, and we, you know, go to Ponca City, and, you know, Dad take us places, and we just have a good time.
Oh, neat. Were some of them from out of state?
Yeah, all of them, yeah. All for far, far away places.
Uh-huh. What was one of the most special, like, intertribal friendships you had over there?
I'd have to say Christine calls him because I met her the summer before I went to Chilocco. And
in Newkirk or
no, I met her we were on an Indian program working at Marlin Mansion. So you know, it's a little fair skinned than some, but she was my friend, and they all think we're afraid of her. I don't know, but they left me alone. So, but yeah, and we're still friends, and we still talk quite a bit. She's an awesome person. So.
Wow. You said You said maybe the other students were kind of a little afraid of her, did you say?
Yeah, she's really not very big, so I was like...
She was tough, though?
Yeah, apparently. She was always really sweet whenever I worked with her, but yeah, some people were afraid of her. So I was thrilled to death to have her as my friend.
Oh, yeah. And how about homework and, balancing? Of course, how much homework did you have when you had to go home then and be with your daughter? I guess it was
not a lot.
Baby daughter.
I don't remember, just studying and things, studying for tests and such.
And you already knew you wanted to do something in business.
Yeah. And I think Sandy's husband was my math teacher, I believe. So, yeah.
How about the food? You ate there at lunch.
It's awesome. I did end up marrying the cook's son, so Simeon McCarty's son. And, but no, there was never any complaints about the food or the amount you got. And he would feed you well, for sure.
That's great.
It was right up there with restaurant food. I mean, it really was good. Really good food.
So, when you started that semester of 1980, I guess it's the 79, fall of 79.
79, 80.
Were people talking, were there rumors afloat that Chilocco was going to close? Was it announced at the beginning of the year even? Or?
I don't think it was announced. I don't remember it being announced at the beginning of the year. I remember it kind of being a shock. So.
But you were hearing people talk about it. When was the official announcement made?
I'll be honest. I can't remember. I just remember, back then you think that's all everybody else's stuff to worry about.
Right.
But it was not good. I mean, the seniors had it the best because they were done and they could move on, where the lower classmen had to find other places to be.
Right.
And I particularly was sent to my aunt's house up in Kansas and went to Chaparral High School, and that was pretty traumatic. So.
Oh. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. So basically, and they probably didn't want to disrupt. I mean, they wanted the students to be able to focus on their studies. But then come springtime, everybody kind of knew that this was the last semester. They needed to make preparations. Do you remember, did they have, at the end of the year, what was that graduation like? That must have been tough.
Oh, I think the senior class, got to go to D.C. and, I mean, they sent them out good. They really did.
They got to take a special trip. And did you go to the graduation ceremony too?
Yep. For sure.
So you've got these friends, and they're also having to make alternative
We didn't have
plans.
Facebook back then, so you just lost track.
Yeah.
I mean, I found a lot of them now. So, that's a lot of years later.
Through the association? The Alumni Association?
Mostly through Facebook.
It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that can do, yeah. So, when you went up to Kansas, that was not a good experience in that public school.
Well, no. It's not that my aunt wasn't doing a good job or that I didn't like my cousins or anything. It was just different. Back into the a different society.
Right. Right.
This was rural, Kansas.
Yes.
So when you're used to feeling, when you're with people you feel, a part of, it's really hard.
Right. And that was for your senior year, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened after that?
I married the man that I went to school with at Chilocco. Didn't last very long, but I did.
Were you back living in Oklahoma at that point?
Well, he come got me.
Okay.
So, and then yes.
Were you doing anything related to business at that point too?
No, I was just a high school student and working in a restaurant.
Okay. Up there in Kansas, you were working part-time.
Yeah.
Saving your money or?
No, of course.
And then you were at another college before going to OSU, right? Did you have another?
I first went to NOC.
Okay.
And for broadcasting, and then
For broadcasting.
Yeah, and then when I figured out you can't make any money at this, I worked at I think 3 different radio stations and did some disc jockeying in several clubs, and I think even having your own show, I made $5 an hour, so I decided I should probably go into business. So at that time, I remarried, and we went to OSU Okmulgee. And so he graduated before I did. And
at OSU Okmulgee, you were still taking on the business track?
Yeah, still on business. We started the first ever Native American Student Association, and I think we called it ASA, and had the first ever powwow there.
Which your grandmother?
My grandmother helped put together, and a lot of our members were already dancers and already knew all they needed to do. I got plumed that year.
Oh, neat.
And pretty awesome.
Yes, very awesome.
And then we transferred up to Paducah, Kentucky, and I went to work for a radio station.
This was you and your husband?
Yeah.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
Through his work or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he got transferred again, and I went back to school. And so went to Kaskaskia College in Centralia, Illinois, and got an associate's degree in 2 or 3 different things. Retail management, business association, and maybe even marketing, I don't know. I took so many different classes that it just all...
Right.
I had several different little things, so...
Cool.
Then we got transferred again, and to Houston, and I opened... they had the Katy Mills Mall, and it was a little different type of mall, and I was general manager of two toy stores there, Toyco and Playco. Don't suggest it, but I think they take your retail managers and they plug them in until they burn you completely out. But then we got transferred again to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we were finally back home.
Wow. And you're raising your family, your kids at that time too.
That's when I went to OSU.
Okay.
So.
And was that...
Yeah, I'm raising 7 kids in the middle of all that.
Right.
So, well.
So at OSU, you'd kind of decided on some specifics, a specific track, sort of.
It was still business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it a graduate degree or was it a...
No, I was just working on my bachelor's.
Bachelor's, yeah. What was the difference between OSU maybe and what you'd gotten?
Well, I could tell you at OSU Okmulgee, I ran back into Sandy and her husband.
That's neat.
And her sister. Mm-hmm. And they were all my teachers again. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
That is awesome.
It was awesome. I hated leaving Okmulgee. I really did.
I bet.
Yeah. So.
When you were at OSU Stillwater, or were you going to the extension?
I went to OSU Tulsa.
Okay.
And OSU
Both.
Stillwater.
Yeah, traveled back and forth. So, at OSU, what kind of skills did you pick up that maybe built upon what you had that you felt kind of made a difference?
Oh, at OSU? I think at OSU, they just want you to learn and give you the skills and knowledge that, you know, we're in a trending technological, and that, you know, this is how you find what you need to find, because you do a lot of research papers and things, because you're always going to be wanting to learn. I mean, everything's different from when I went to school. Not a lot of it is even applicable, you know?
Right.
So you have to learn to learn.
Right, especially in that area of communication.
And I think they put so much pressure on you. I could say the one thing that I left OSU with is learning how to push through difficult obstacles. And, you know, you have 3 term papers and, you know, and you're striving to try to keep your grades good. And you're like, there's no way in the world I'm ever going to get this done. And you just do it. And at the end, you know, you're like, how did I do it? So I think that's what I learned, how to push through and learn, mostly.
When did you begin getting involved with the Alumni Association again?
I haven't really been that awful involved with the Alumni Association. Mostly my dad. You know, I think after my dad passed, because he loved the Alumni Association so much. Since he graduated, I don't think he's missed, you know, one alumni thing all of those years.
Wow.
And so I used to go with him quite a bit. And, you know, at that time my class wasn't really, you know, even attending, you know, raising families and things. But I went several times with him.
What is your what do you think is the most fun part about the ones that you went to? What was the?
They know how to have fun. I mean, they're judges and lawyers, and you know, it's amazing to me the quality of people that Chilocco did raise, and like I said, entrepreneurs, and you know, the quality, how they were taught how to live in society and succeed, but they didn't know how to have fun within reason. So it was fun watching older people have fun.
Right.
Now I know how to have fun since I'm the older person.
What would you like people to, well, you're currently self-employed.
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about your jobs?
Well, I was working as my dad and I worked together for 8 years in Stillwater, and we had a diesel repair shop where I learned to be a diesel mechanic.
Oh my goodness! So he had his printing background, but he also
he had a bridge building company for 30 years, him and his brother. And so when they got older and decided to dissolve it, Dad was wanting to get all the equipment together and get it fixed up so that they could sell it all off. And we brought in a mechanic to work on things. Well, at that time there wasn't any diesel mechanics in Stillwater. So next thing we know, his friends are bringing us their equipment, and we're starting to work on their equipment, and then we're like, well, we probably ought to start charging, you know, how do you, and the next thing I know, we're in a business. And
you're kind of running the business side.
I'm doing the marketing.
You
know, those kind of things, you know, office stuff. And Dad, you know, was, you know, in charge of the mechanics and all of those things. But, you know, as time went on, next thing I knew, you know, I'm kind of getting pulled into the shop and helping them do all kinds of little things that I didn't really at the time want to do. And I've always been my dad's helper. He was Dennis Michael Jones, and I was Denise Michelle Jones, the only boy he ever got. And so I got to learn how to paint. I've got to learn how to be a finished carpenter. I got to learn how to, you know, do construction work, learn how to diesel mechanic. And so we ended up dissolving BC and then opening up DJ Construction and Repair. So we did that for about 8 years until my dad got real sick. Prior to that, when we had started, getting kind of sick, we thought, well, I couldn't imagine running it without him. Mm-hmm. And so we, went ahead and had a big auction, and most of the stuff that was bought by this construction company. And since Dad was in construction all those years, he really liked Robbie, and he would give him advice. Next thing I know, my sick dad is working for Robbie, and so I'm coming over and I'm noticing that he is doing things that he shouldn't be doing, so I start helping him on my spare time. And next thing I know, I'm working with Robbie, and he and I are fixing equipment together again, and then he got too sick for it. I remember him being in the hospital and me still asking him questions on some of the things, because we worked on such a wide variety of stuff. Mm-hmm. So after he passed, I really had a hard time doing that anymore. So I packed up and moved to Tulsa, be a little closer to my grown kids, and ended up going to work for, I went to work for a manufacturer for that sublet. We did airplane parts and stuff. So when I figured out 100 degrees and 108 in the blast rooms, as cool as it gets in there, I called a friend. I'm like, do you have any positions open over there? She goes, yeah. So next thing I knew, I was in medical records, and I ended up from medical records into the office, working as an administrative assistant. And then they started having me doing some of their marketing for them. And then from that, I went to marketing director of the 5 nursing homes and 1 assisted living that they had. And I did that until they had one of them close, and it was the one that I homed out of. And so at that particular time, kind of like my dad, I worked a lot, and I had been on weekends when I wasn't doing anything, I was Uber and Lyft driving. Well, I was finding out at that particular time that I was making more doing that in less days, than what so then I moved on into doing that. We later started noticing, Uber wouldn't let you have tips on the app or anything, but they had lost a class action lawsuit saying that we couldn't have a tip. So some of my comrades and I, a couple of them, we came up with a company called Tipsters, and we made lighted tip cups and light kits for your car, so that and our logo is making tipping fun. And because it has a remote control, it goes to the music, but you still have your tip jar there. And it was kind of our way at that time, to say, yeah, we can have tips. Right. So we pretty much, was on the forefront of helping rideshare drivers get tips. Right.
So and you did you had a lot of the ideas for the marketing of that.
Yeah.
Service. Well, what would you like people to know or remember about Chilocco?
It was family. It was family.
Very literally for you and emotionally.
And for a lot of the students, it was the only family they had. So.
Is there anything else we should talk about that we haven't?
Can't think of anything yet. So you're going probably.
thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you.
This is just a little postscript about taking kids home.
Yeah, I think probably one of the most memorable things was my dad, would always want me to bring some of the kids home, with me. And he knew that some of them, were so far away from their families, and that some maybe didn't have any family, and came from all different kind of situations. So every week, I would bring, one of my friends home with me, and it was awesome. So.
All right.